In the modern landscape, our attention is the most contested real estate on Earth. We live in an economy designed to fragment our focus, where every notification, headline, and urgent email is a calculated attempt to pull us away from our core purpose. Most of us move through our days in a state of reactive exhaustion, feeling as though we are constantly busy yet strangely unproductive. We are like ships without rudders, tossed about by the shifting winds of external demands. This isn't just a productivity problem, it is a quality of life crisis. Enter Stoicism, a philosophy forged in the chaotic streets of Rome and Athens, designed specifically for those who must remain effective under pressure. To the Stoics, focus was not a hack or a fleeting state of flow. It was a moral imperative. They understood that to lose control of your mind is to lose control of your life. By practicing the art of Stoic focus, we learn to distinguish between the noise of the world and the signal of our own reason. We move from being victims of our environment to being the sole governors of our internal state. The goal is simple but profound: to reclaim the sovereignty of your mind. By stripping away the non-essential and anchoring ourselves in the present moment, we don't just get more done, we do what matters with a sense of profound calm. Master your mind, master your life. If you're ready to stop reacting and start leading, subscribe now to join our community of modern Stoics, dedicated to clarity, discipline, and deep work. The modern professional does not suffer from a lack of information, but from a catastrophic surplus of it. We are currently living through a crisis of the fragmented soul, a term that describes the psychological splintering that occurs when our attention is pulled in a dozen different directions simultaneously. Seneca, the great Stoic statesman, identified this ailment 2,000 years ago when he wrote, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." Today, we are everywhere digitally, while being nowhere mentally. The architecture of distraction. The fundamental problem is that our brains are evolved for a world of physical threats and scarce information, yet we inhabit an environment of digital abundance and engineered dopamine loops. We're operating on ancient hardware trying to process a modern fire hose of data. This mismatch creates a state of continuous partial attention. When your soul is fragmented, you're never fully present in any single domain of your life. While you're at work, you're worrying about a text message from a friend. While you're with your family, your mind is ruminating on a project deadline. While you're trying to sleep, your brain is processing the outrage of a social media thread. This constant context switching comes with a heavy cognitive tax. Research suggests it can take upwards of 20 minutes to regain deep focus after a single interruption. If you're interrupted every 10 minutes, you're effectively living in a state of permanent cognitive impairment. The tyranny of the unnecessary. Marcus Aurelius, during his time as emperor, sat in his tent on the Danubian frontier and wrote a directive to himself. Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? He recognized that the majority of human activity is a waste of spirit. In the 21st century, the unnecessary has been weaponized. We have confused urgency with importance. The ping of a Slack message feels urgent, so we treat it as important. The red dot on an app icon signals a need for attention, so we grant it. In doing so, we surrender our agency. We allow the world to set our priorities for us. A fragmented soul is a reactive soul. It is a mind that has given up its throne and allowed the mob of external stimuli to take the lead. The illusion of control. The most insidious part of the fragmented soul is the belief that we can multitask our way out of the chaos. We believe that by keeping 20 tabs open and responding to emails in the middle of a meeting, we are being efficient. Stoicism argues the opposite. Efficiency is not doing more things. It is doing the right things with total devotion. When we attempt to multitask, we are not actually doing multiple things at once. We are rapidly switching between them, leaving attention residue on every task we touch. This residue clouds our judgment and thins our character. We become thin people, individuals who know a little bit about everything happening in the news cycle but have no depth of thought, no stillness of spirit, and no mastery over their own desires. The anxiety of the open loop. A fragmented soul is a breeding ground for anxiety. Every unfinished task, every unread message, and every half-baked idea creates an open loop in the psyche. The Stoics referred to this as thoia, a fluttering of the mind, a state of being startled or unsettled. Without a central organizing principle, these open loops multiply until the weight of them becomes a background radiation of stress. We feel a vague sense of guilt when we aren't working, and a vague sense of overwhelm when we are. This is the hallmark of the fragmented soul, the inability to be at peace with oneself because the mind is cluttered with the wreckage of 1,000 different directions, the loss of the hegemonikon. In Stoic philosophy, the hegemonikon is the ruling faculty of the mind. It is the part of you that reasons, decides, and directs your will. A fragmented soul is a soul where the hegemonikon has been abdicated. When you cannot focus, you cannot exercise virtue. Courage requires focus to face a difficult truth. Temperance requires focus to resist a fleeting impulse. Justice requires focus to see a situation clearly without bias. If your attention is shattered, your ability to be a good, effective human being is shattered along with it. You become a slave to your environment, reacting to whatever stimulus is loudest or brightest, the spiritual cost. Finally, the problem of the fragmented soul is a spiritual one. We are losing the capacity for deep life. Deep work, deep relationships, and deep self-reflection all require a unified mind. You cannot love deeply if your mind is on your phone. You cannot solve a complex problem if your mind is checking the stock market. You cannot know yourself if you're constantly escaping into the digital elsewhere. The Stoic solution is not to hide from the world, but to build an inner fortress, the inner citadel that the world cannot penetrate. But before we can build that fortress, we must acknowledge the gravity of the problem. Our souls are in pieces, scattered across 12 platforms and 100 trivialities. We are exhausted not because we are working too hard, but because we are focused too little. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies a deceptively simple command. Control what you can and ignore the rest. Epictetus, the slave-turned-teacher, opened his Enchiridion with the definitive line, "Some things are in our control and others not." This is the dichotomy of control, and it is the master key to laser-like focus. To the modern mind, this sounds like common sense, but we rarely practice it. Most of our mental bandwidth is consumed by a grey zone of things we can influence but not control. We obsess over whether people like us, how the economy is performing, or whether our hard work will result in a promotion. In the Stoic view, this is not just a waste of time, it is a form of self-inflicted madness, mapping the boundaries. To master your focus, you must draw a hard line in the sand. Internal, up to us, our opinions, our intentions, our desires, and our own actions. Essentially, the command center of the mind. External, not up to us. The body, it can get sick. Property, reputation, the actions of others, and the outcomes of our efforts. When you focus on the external, your soul becomes fragmented because you are anchoring your happiness to variables that are volatile and outside your command. Focus, in the Stoic sense, is the act of withdrawing your energy from the external circle and reinvesting it entirely into the internal circle. The Archer's paradox: focus on the process, not the target. The Stoics use the metaphor of the archer to explain how to focus in a world of uncertainty. An archer can choose his bow, maintain his arrows, and practice his stance. He can control the moment he releases the string. This is his internal focus. However, once the arrow leaves the bow, it's no longer up to him. A sudden gust of wind can blow it off course. The target, a living animal, might move. If the archer's focus is solely on hitting the target, he will feel anxiety while aiming and despair if he misses. But if his focus is on shooting as well as he can, he remains calm. His success is defined by his mastery of the process, not the outcome. In your work, if you focus on getting the promotion, your mind is fragmented by fear of office politics or the boss's mood. If you focus on producing the most excellent report possible in the next hour, your mind is unified. The result is often the same, you get the promotion, but the mental state is radically different. One is focused and serene, the other is scattered and anxious. The reserve clause, focusing through obstacles. Focus often breaks when things go wrong. We plan a deep work session, and then the internet goes out or an emergency meeting is called. Most people react with frustration, which shatters their focus for the rest of the day. The Stoics used the reserve clause, hupex heresis, to maintain focus. They would say, "I will do X, fate permitting." This isn't defeatism, it's a focus protection strategy. By acknowledging that external factors might interfere, you prepare your mind to pivot without losing its composure. If the internet goes out, A Stoic doesn't spend an hour complaining, an external factor. They immediately shift their focus to, what is the most productive thing I can do now without the internet? By constantly asking, what is up to me in this new situation, you keep your focus centered on action rather than reaction. Turning inward. The inner citadel. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about the inner citadel. He believed that while the world around us may be chaotic, the mind has the power to remain an untouched fortress of clarity. Mastering focus means building this citadel. It requires a ruthless subtraction of opinions. Most of the things that distract us are not the events themselves, but our judgments of those events. You aren't distracted by the loud construction outside. You are distracted by your judgment that this construction is annoying and shouldn't be happening. If you can strip away the judgment, the event becomes a neutral fact. A neutral fact is much easier to ignore than an annoying one. By controlling your judgments, an internal act, you gain the ability to maintain focus even in suboptimal environments. Practicing the view from above. When we lose focus, it's usually because we've zoomed in too far on a triviality. We get stuck in a frustrating email thread or a minor setback. The Stoics practiced the view from above to regain perspective. Imagine zooming out from your desk to your city to the planet and finally to the vastness of time. In the grand scheme of the universe, the urgent distraction that is currently hijacking your focus is infinitesimally small. This exercise isn't meant to make your work feel meaningless, but to lower the emotional charge of distractions. When the distraction feels small, it loses its magnetic pull, allowing you to recenter your focus on the task at hand. The discipline of assent. The final layer of the dichotomy of control is the discipline of assent. This is the practice of not letting every thought or impulse take root in your mind. When a distracting thought enters, I should check the news, the Stoic does not immediately follow it. They pause and evaluate the impression. They ask, is this thought leading me toward my purpose, or is it an external lure? By refusing to give assent to distracting thoughts, you guard the gates of your attention. You realize that just because a thought appears in your head doesn't mean you have to own it or act on it. Conclusion of the exploration. The dichotomy of control is the ultimate filter for the human mind. It teaches us that focus is not about willpower, it is about clarity of boundary. When you stop trying to manage the world and start managing your mind, the fragmented soul begins to heal. You stop leaking energy into things you cannot change and begin pouring it into the only thing that matters, your current action. Mastery of focus is the realization that while you cannot control the storm, you are the absolute master of the sail. We have identified the fragmentation of our souls and mapped the boundaries of our control. But now we reach the key moment, the specific mental maneuver that allows a Stoic to kill a distraction in its tracks. This is the climax of Stoic psychological training, the practice of objective representation, or fantasia cataleptic. Most people believe they are distracted by things, a buzzing phone, a loud co-worker, or a looming deadline. The Stoics argue this is a fundamental error. You're never distracted by the thing itself. You are distracted by the narrative you wrap around the thing. The climax of focus mastery occurs when you learn to strip away the story and see the bare, unvarnished reality. The art of seeing things as they are. Marcus Aurelius provided the most famous example of this technique in his Meditations. To avoid being seduced by the luxuries of the imperial palace, he would practice a form of mental decomposition. He looked at a fine Falernian wine and told himself, this is just grape juice. He looked at his purple imperial robes, the ultimate status symbol of the ancient world, and reminded himself, this is just sheep's wool dyed with the blood of a shellfish. Even the most exquisite meal was reduced to the carcass of a bird or a fish. This sounds cynical, but it is actually the ultimate tool for deep focus. By stripping away the glamour or the terror of an object, you neutralize its emotional pull. When you see things as they are, they lose their power to hijack your attention. The anatomy of a distraction. Consider a modern distraction, the urgent email from a demanding client or boss. The narrative. This is a disaster. They're angry. If I don't answer right now, I might lose the account. My reputation will be ruined, and I'll be a failure. The objective representation. This is black pixels arranged in a specific pattern on a glowing screen. It is a series of electronic pulses sent over a wire. The climax is that split second where you choose which version to believe. When you view the email as a disaster, your amygdala triggers a fight or flight response. Your focus is shattered because your brain is now preoccupied with survival. But when you view it as pixels on a screen, the emotional charge vanishes. You haven't ignored the email, you've simply removed the hook that causes the fluttering of the mind. You can now decide with a calm and unified soul when it is most rational to address those pixels. Fantasia, cataleptic. The comprehensive grasp. The Stoics called a clear, objective mental image a cataleptic impression. It is an impression so clear and accurate that it commands assent. In the context of focus, this means seeing the distraction so clearly that you realize it has no inherent power to move you. Imagine you are trying to focus on a difficult project, but you feel the urge to check social media. The impulse. I need to see what's happening. I'm missing out. I need a hit of excitement. Objective representation. I am feeling a slight chemical itch in my brain. I am looking at a plastic and glass rectangle. I am considering moving my thumb 2 inches to the left to see images of people I barely know. When you describe the distraction objectively, it begins to look ridiculous. The key moment is this realization of absurdity. Why would a rational being surrender their life's work for a chemical itch or a plastic rectangle? Stripping the value judgments. Focus is leaked through value judgments. We label things as good, bad, scary, or exciting. These labels are the glue that sticks our attention to the wrong things. Objective representation acts as a solvent. It dissolves the glue. If you can look at a setback, let's say your computer crashes and you lose an hour of work, and see it objectively, the data on the drive has been reset, I must type these words again. You avoid the emotional spiral of, this always happens to me, I'm so behind. The emotional spiral is what actually kills your focus for the rest of the day, not the lost hour of work. By staying in the objective, you remain in the now. The point of no return. The climax of this practice is reaching the point where you no longer need to consciously do the exercise. You simply see the world through this lens. You become a spectator of your own impressions. When an intrusive thought enters, perhaps a memory of an embarrassing moment or a fear of the future, you catch it at the threshold of your mind. You look at it and say, you are just an impression, and not at all the thing you claim to represent. This is the ultimate act of Stoic defiance. You are refusing to let a mental ghost dictate your physical focus. Practical application. The 5-second audit. In your next deep work session, when you feel your focus slipping, perform an objective audit on the distraction. 1. Identify the feeling. I feel a pull toward my phone. 2. Strip the narrative. My phone is a hunk of metal and lithium. 3. Describe the action. I am considering stopping my purposeful work to stare at a light-emitting diode. 4. Recenter. The light is irrelevant. The work is my duty. Back to the work. The freedom of the objective mind. The power of objective representation is that it creates a buffer between the world and your reaction. In that buffer lies your freedom. If you can see the chaos of your office or the stress of your workload as merely movement and noise, you become untouchable. You aren't trying to find a quiet place to work. You are making a quiet place within your own mind. You're no longer at the mercy of how things feel. You're focused on what things are. This is how an emperor could find total focus in the middle of a war, and it is how you can find total focus in the middle of the digital age. In the Stoic tradition, focus is far more than a tool for efficiency. It is a fundamental character trait. It is the outward expression of an inward discipline. To be focused is to be in command of one's soul, while to be distracted is to be a slave to every passing whim and external noise. By shifting our perspective from getting things done to being the master of our minds, we transform our work into a form of spiritual practice. To live the focused life, you must commit to 3 core pillars. Audit your unnecessaries. Ruthlessly subtract the trivial. If a task, a conversation, or a digital habit does not contribute to your purpose or your character, it is a leak in your vessel. Stop trying to manage the noise and start cutting it out. Value your time. Your attention is your most valuable and only non-renewable currency. While you might guard your money with locks and keys, you likely give your attention away to any algorithm or interruption that asks for it. Treat your focus as a sacred resource. Focus on the present. power exists only in the now. The past is a memory and the future is a phantom. Neither can be acted upon. By anchoring your mind in the present moment, you eliminate the anxiety of the what if and the regret of the what was, leaving you with a unified, potent will. Living this way doesn't just make you more productive, it makes you invincible. Your attention is the only thing you truly own. Stop giving it away for free. Your challenge for today is to identify one unnecessary habit that fragments your soul. Whether it's reaching for your phone the second you wake up, or mindless scrolling during your lunch break, recognize it for what it is, a leak in your inner citadel. For just today, replace that habit with 5 minutes of deep, uninterrupted reflection or work. Choose to be the master of your impulses rather than their servant. If you found this valuable, hit the subscribe button and join our community of modern Stoics.